And how many times have we talked to managers and go, I was so busy today and I got nothing done.
Yep.
Well, we paid you for that. Like they're giving you money to do this, and it's like, yeah, it's not effective. So.
Welcome again to It Doesn't Take a Genius, conversation with introspective perspectives and pithy points of view. Here are your hosts, my friends, Max and Marty.
I think that's Mark and Mike.
Yeah, whatever.
Ramsey!
Marshall, what a pleasure to see you yet again. We're doing one of our famous back-to-back episode recordings. So, I love it when we have a little continuity between my outfits, frankly.
Oh, yes. And the fact that I think in all but one of our podcasts, I've worn the exact same shirt. Yeah. And the wife keeps trying to throw it away. The collar's getting worn on the edge. Yeah. She's like, I could really dust the house with that. Like, no, this is, you don't understand. This Smithsonian's going to want this someday. It's part of their iconic, wardrobe. It's going to be right there with, one of Elton's outfits. Yeah, it's going to.
I will say that I cannot see the threadbareness on video. So
yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, we don't have high def.
Right.
Yeah. So we're speaking, what we call this episode, like the lone wolf entrepreneur, the lone wolf gig employee, the man against the world kind of thing. So what are we talking about today?
Well, we've talked many times with many of our clients about the good old Eisenhower matrix. This idea that you can sort of popularized by Dwight Eisenhower, that the important things are not always urgent, the urgent things are not always important. Some things are important, some things are less than important. Some things are urgent, some things are less than urgent, and you can sort of put that into a little bit of a chart and say, the important and urgent things, that's quadrant one. We do those right away. We're gonna fight that fire. We're gonna deal with that crisis. We're gonna meet that deadline. But then there are some things that are not urgent, but are very important. And so we're going to need to schedule those things. Those things are going to, somehow they've got to make it into our day. They've got to make it onto our calendar. I don't have to exercise today, but if I stop exercising on a regular basis, there's going to be some serious health conditions that happen. So I got to somehow make that happen. But that's quadrant two. Quadrant three is the one that everybody struggles with because it's not as important, but it's urgent. It's urgent. And I have so many folks who go through workshops with me and with you. Maybe they're a department of one. Maybe they just are somebody that doesn't have anybody reporting to them. Maybe they're like you and me, just out here on our own, working from home and then hitting the road. I don't really have anybody to delegate to, but I sure do want to stop doing these tasks that are not really important, but they're urgent. They're things that keep coming in, reports that I have to fill out, or I don't know what it would be necessarily for each individual, but there are things that are urgent and coming up on my radar and interrupting my day, and I just have more important things to do. So how do I deal with that? Because it feels like I don't have anybody to pass the buck to. What do I do with those tasks?
Oh, yeah. Well, and to me, I think of this when I think about rich people. And you think about the Jeff Bezos, the Richard Bransons, the Elon Musks, the Bill Gates and these guys.
Yep.
And all they focus on is the important and not urgent. So they're not putting out fires with customers and things like that. They're not filing their expense reports. Like they're not collating and stapling the handouts for their next presentation. They're just they're so by eliminating those quadrant three activities that it's urgent but not important, man, they're able to completely focus on the as Covey says, right, make the first things first, right? Let's make the main thing the main thing.
That's right.
And when you think about it, if you didn't have to if you didn't have to think about preparing your breakfast, if you didn't have to think about driving yourself to work, right? Because you had a driver, right? How much more could you get done in that same 24-hour period that we all have if you were completely focused on the primary thing?
That's right.
And so all right, so many of us aren't billionaires yet, but we
This is
encourage all
true.
our listeners to get there. And
Yep.
so both of you. And so the conversation now is, how do I incrementally get there?
Yeah.
Right, what are the things I can do at this level that would help me to free up time to focus on the big stuff?
That's exactly right. And maybe you've already sort of pointed out one there, that we ought to maybe just go ahead and talk about. The example I think of is Steve Jobs and his turtlenecks. And I believe they are, if I remember correctly, they are Izzy Miyake turtlenecks. He actually went to a famous Japanese designer who I recall did something with Pet Shop Boys, one of my favorite groups. Top 5, easily my top 5. The inflatable outfit. Anyway, point is, he went to a famous designer and had him design and create and make like 50 black turtlenecks. He never had to make that decision ever again. This is what I wear when I wake up in the morning. I'm not going to spend any mental power or minutes of my day making that decision because I've got more important things to do. So maybe there are some things that we can just say, I'm not going to make that decision anymore. I'm always going to do it this way, so that I can free up time to do other things. Or maybe it's, I know you and I both do this. I'm going to pay somebody. When I hit the road, I get my printing done ahead of time. I do not spend any time at my computer trying to figure out, okay, I have to print 6 of these and these need to be double-sided. I have offloaded that responsibility to the wonderful folks at Minuteman Press in Richmond, Kentucky. Super cheap and super customer oriented. Pete, I love you. I'll just go ahead and say that it's worth the money that I spend to make that happen, so that I just do not worry about that anymore. I'm taking that away.
Oh no, that's huge. When you think about, some minor expense,
Yeah.
but it frees up a ton of valuable time.
Happy to have that eat into my profit margin. I mean, because it allows me to have that much more time for marketing, for strategizing, for doing a good job for my clients.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I remember, for years I had somebody mow my lawn, and
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love mowing my lawn. It just gives me tremendous gratitude. But I found it was one of those things that I was not necessarily at the time, but thinking about it.
Yeah.
Do I have gas? Will the mower start? Right. Well, I'm only home one day this week. What if it rains that day?
Yep.
Yeah. And so I found myself, postulating about it and thinking about it. Finally, so I offloaded it, and yeah, that helped tremendously.
That's funny because I did the same thing. In fact, when you and I met, I had bought a house, and I was not clever enough to say, hey, my quadrant 3 activities are really going to get in the way, so I need to offload mowing. But I did have an elderly neighbor, and she came over and said, listen, you're going to keep this thing mowed, right? Here's my guy. And yeah, sure enough, I was hitting the road so often on a regular basis that I did indeed use her guy. So
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes that works. I remember I bought a house in town, and when my first house in the the populated area, and the person I bought it from was a tremendous rose garden person. So there was
Oh.
roses just pouring all over my house, and I'd never really seen one growing, and so I just would get in the morning and leave, and they were just taking over the gutters and spilling out into the lawn, and I came out one day, and there's these 2 little old ladies in my sidewalk, and they're like, "Excuse me, do you live here? Yes. Do you own the place? Yes. Would you mind terribly if we pruned your rose bushes? We cannot
You
stand
are
it
driving
anymore."
us crazy.
Yeah. They walked every day past there, and they were insane. And so I'm like, just knock yourself out. And so yeah, I had these two ladies just, and people, I got so many compliments everywhere I go in town. I went by your house, your roses look amazing. Yes, it's a lot
Well,
of
you
work.
know me.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. The Lord wanted me to have beautiful things. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So yeah, what can I offload, right? And we've talked about this before, right? With a website like Fiverr,
Yep.
Fiverr, right? There's 250,000, maybe 300,000 people willing to the smallest things, right? Edit a document, craft a PowerPoint for you. Maybe you had a great idea, you spoke it into a recorded device, and they will transcribe it into documented words for you.
Mm-hmm.
And for very little money. So yeah, can I
Yep.
get rid of those things and
Yep.
just offload them for just a little bit of cash? All right.
Yep.
So what else could I do?
So I think another one that you just sort of introduced there is things like AI, things that automate what you're doing. So for instance, I used to spend a lot of time every day sending out emails, not every day, but every week I would send out emails to my clients, to prospects, and it became very unwieldy. I was managing a list. I was also having to copy and paste the addresses and copy and paste the message and make sure that everything was formatted right, and then send it again. And it got very time consuming. So now I use a service that automates that whole process. Essentially, I still write it, and I'm not totally satisfied with my results yet, but I will tell you it's saved me hours per week because I've automated the system. So that's a little bit of an offshoot of what we're talking about there. AI, a lot of that isn't going to cost you any money. It's just figuring out how to use it to collate, analyze some data. I'm not a fan of AI in the terms of preventing me from thinking. I need to be doing the thinking and putting some grooves down in my brain. But if I'm doing some tasks that are just time intensive, labor intensive, and it's just, essentially busy work, it's got to be done, but it's just not important. There's some things there that you could use AI for, things like AI to automate those processes.
Oh yeah, no, it's absolutely fantastic, and I use it. My rule is if I'm going to write something more than a couple of paragraphs, then I start with AI. I've got an idea, kind of like you said, right? I've got an idea of what I want to say and things like that, but can I eliminate some of just the process of getting it onto paper? And so yeah, that's kind of my. If it's a couple sentences, I write it. If it's going to be longer than that, well, let's see what the AI would write, and then of course it has to be modified just slightly. But yeah, it's got to be saving 15, 10 minutes, an hour on certain projects just automatically. And sometimes it makes me look really smart.
Sure.
And I'm for that.
Yes. I do worry long term, like if we always do that, are we going to lose some ability to do some processing and analyzing on our own? But there's just something to be said for the fact that we're kickstarting a process or automating a process or so on and so forth. So
oh yeah, it's like always having somebody there to brainstorm with who's really smart.
Right.
And
as long as you're brainstorming, right? I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah. They've read, everything on the internet and they remember it all. And I'd like to bounce some ideas off of that one. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's absolutely perfect. So what else can we do?
All right. Well, so the other one that I sort of toy around with is just the idea that, okay, you don't have anybody to delegate to, but maybe you do. Maybe it's a peer. Maybe it's having a conversation with a colleague and saying, here's what I'm doing. Is there some way we can sort of share the load or pitch in with each other to get some things done? So I don't ever want people to feel like they're on an island. And here's the example in our world. I don't think I've ever started a project where I haven't said, hey guys, you ever done this? What would you do? And gotten some, frankly, incredibly high caliber free advice, free consulting on a project I'm working on. So, that again, I could have sat there in a vacuum and done that, but getting somebody else involved and saying, do you have a template for how you would do this project? Or, is there something of yours I could harvest, as we like to say? Our old buddy David Kohler used to tell us, a good consultant never steals, he harvests. So, I often harvest from people way smarter than me. So I think there are some people that in a sense you can delegate to on things like that.
Oh yeah, utilizing your network.
Yep.
Yeah. Who are the people in your circle, and hopefully you've crafted, you've crafted a circle that's in my case, right. I'm looking for all the people smarter than me,
Yep.
and have them in my orbit, and then being willing to ask them, hey, just like you said, have you tried this? And it's interesting. It's something that people, they enjoy it when they're asked, but people hesitate to ask.
Yeah.
We actually think more highly of the person who says,
Right.
hey, I've got this idea, can you help me make it better?
Yeah.
We think more highly of that person, and yet we tend to hesitate to do it.
Yeah.
Which I find
And,
an interesting human dichotomy.
and just so we're clear, that think more highly, it's not like he's a pretty neat guy. It's like we value that person more.
Yes.
Like even within a network, like that person's more valuable on the team, even though they're the one asking for help. That's just amazing.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to do that. Yeah.
Or be afraid, just push past it.
Yeah, right. That's
yeah. We can't get rid of the fear, but we cannot let it control our behavior.
Well said. Well said. So another one that I think we ought to talk about is just the idea that if it's a quadrant 3 activity and it's taking a lot of time, maybe it's worth carving out some space on your calendar to see if there's a better way. So in other words, that's a quadrant 2 activity. That's something that would be, it's not urgent. We're going to have to keep doing this task. I could just keep doing it. But maybe it's not so urgent that I come up with a better way. But man, that'd be important, wouldn't it? Like that would cut down on the task. It would take less time. So in other words, carve out some time to see if you can do any process improvement, any better efficiencies, any more innovative way of solving the problem that you're continually coming up against as a labor intensive task that's again not important but urgent. Spend some time coming up with an efficiency, an improvement that actually would make it take less time.
Well, and I think of the idea of batching, and that's something I've been working to do. Instead of jumping around, I'm going to work out, I'm going to take today's expenses and receipts and put them into my expense software. And then, I'm going to send out an invoice. I'm going to do that. Instead, right, waiting until, a few of them pile up and then doing all my expenses all at one time. So I get in the flow, I get focused, I'm going through my receipts, and I got everything out. It's all in the handy. And then I done, I wrap it up with a nice bow, I put it away, and now I'm done with that for a while.
So that's a perfect example of how you're going to have to fine tune this for you, because if I did that, I would never do it. I got in trouble early on in my career for batching. And realized that once I got to the batch, I would be like, oh, what did I do? Now, what was the whole project that I was involved in? So I have to, and we've talked about this before, if it's going to take less than 5 minutes, just do it. That's how I invoice. That's how I do my expenses. That's those kind of reports like that. It just takes so little time. And I've got enough of a habit of how I do that I just do it in the moment and I'm done. But if that's not you, then man, I'd spend some time thinking about, okay, could I batch this? Could I come up with a better routine? And honestly, now that I say that out loud, Mike, really what I did is I came up with a better routine. I figured out a way to, I figured out how I could duplicate some files and do a copy paste so that my invoicing is actually pretty easy. Anyway, this is only going to be a personalized podcast, right? All of these things that we're offering people to try out, it's going to be, what's going to work for you. But there it is. There's another one.
Well, I think it goes, you're exactly right. It has to be personalized. It has to work for you. one of the exercises that we've had folks do is just to keep a running list for an average day.
Yep.
What am I doing in 15-minute increments, 10-minute increments, and just, because you don't remember,
Yep.
and how many times have we talked to managers and go, I was so busy today and I got nothing done.
Yep.
Well, we paid you for that. Like they're giving you money to do this, and it's like, yeah, it's not effective. So it's only by making notes, and then you go back through and go, okay, which of these is a quadrant one? It's urgent and important. It was a firefighting thing. Could I have prevented from ever getting to that level?
Yep.
And then, what's a quadrant two, which is the main thing, and then quadrant three, it's urgent, but it's not important. How much of my day did I spend on that? And then start looking for the ones that can be handled in a different way.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, I've got one more. Do you have any more ideas? I have one other thought.
No, I'd love to hear your thought.
Stop doing it.
What?
That's my idea. Yeah.
What? Just quit?
Yeah. Just quit. And
I'm not a quitter.
Well, I know you're not personally, but maybe you should be. The idea of pruning, right? And we've maybe talked about this on the podcast before, but the idea of pruning is not that you knock off the dead branches, right? Those are the quadrant 4 activities, right? They ain't urgent, they ain't important. Stop doing it. But the quadrant 3 activities, some of them have a use. They're less important, but they're important to a degree, and that's what pruning is really about. You of course get rid of the dead branches, but get rid of the good branches, because that gives more resources to the best branches, the ones that are going to produce the most flowers, the most fruit. So get rid of those dead branches, sure, but get rid of the good branches, because the best branches are going to flow. And again, if you say, whoa, my boss is not going to allow me to not submit that one report that is essentially busy work. Okay, I get it. Go try out our other ideas. But there are some things on there that I think you'll be surprised when you say, you know what? I just don't know that it's going to be value enough. Yeah, there will be negative consequences, but not enough to matter to be worth it to get in the way of the quadrant 2 time that I could be spending, where I could be working on some really value added things that move our business forward, move my career forward, etc. So just go ahead and give yourself permission to say, yeah, I'm just going to stop doing that. That's it.
And I've heard stories from managers where they've just quit sending this report because they firmly believe no one was ever looking at it, right? They weren't looking at this email that they sent, they were required to send every week, and so they just stopped sending it and wait.
Yeah.
Like nobody ever said anything. So maybe it was management above them had made a decision just by their behavior that this wasn't a priority.
Yeah.
But they hadn't told anybody, and so do that judiciously, or be careful. But let's test some common knowledge, right? Common practice.
Yeah.
That maybe, nobody cares anymore. Nobody's gonna miss it. It's not serving a purpose. Yeah, can I just stop doing it? Can I quit?
I think that's a great caveat, that you do this judiciously by doing a short-term test, but maybe it just doesn't need to be done. So I will say, to give a little bit of a teaser for our next episode, try out all these ideas. If you're a manager, all of these ideas probably in some degree apply to you. Pay for it, automate it, use some sort of system, look through your resources, try to do some process improvement, or just stop doing it. All of those ideas, they're great ideas. The other one that often comes to us is, well, I do have direct reports I could delegate to, but man, they're busy. They don't have any time for new tasks. We'll cover that in our next episode, because that's a really valuable question, and it's got some pretty solid answers.
Oh yeah, and I appreciate where the manager is coming from an empathetic point of view.
That's right.
I care about my people. I don't want to burn them out. I don't want to run them off.
Yeah.
And so their concerns are legitimate. And we want to talk about, okay, how do we do this in such a way that maybe it's actually more engaging for those folks?
Yeah, it's going to be a great podcast. So tune in.
Awesome. I love it. All right. Speaking of love it, he loves the podcast. Take it away, Mr. Wolf.
He's probably one of the 2 listeners.
He probably is. No.
And that's it. Join us next time when you'll hear Mike say, well, I'm sure he'll say something pithy. Don't miss it. Next time, it doesn't take a genius.
That's good enough.